Wow, absolutely fantastic this morning. As you can see behind me, the snow has well and truly landed in the Lake District. It's pretty rare that happens, to be honest. It's normally over the Pennines that, you know, further inland that get the snow, but we've got snow this morning right down to ground level, which is absolutely fantastic. So I've come to an area that you probably saw on a video of mine back in, it would have been back in the summer in May when there was a load of mist, and it's quite rare that we get snow in this area, so this was kind of first on my list, if you like. It's been a little bit of a struggle, even though the conditions are absolutely fantastic, because a lot of these trees are sort of blending into the background, and because of the sort of topography of the land, the backs of the fells sort of cut into a lot of the shots, and it's quite hard to get that separation that you're after. So I've been tramping across quite rough ground this morning, trying to find something that grabs me, but after a good 25-30 minutes of stumbling about in deep snow, I think I've found some. So I'll talk you through this shot that I've got set up. Right, just have to be a bit careful here because I'm in wellies. So this shot, I'm looking at a lone tree because there's a lot of lone trees up here, but as I was saying before about separating the subject, because we haven't got the snowfall, which I'm going to hang around for, because, you know, if snow does come through here at any point, I will get that nice softening of the background that I'm after. But this shot as it is, I think, strikes the best balance given the conditions I've got, in that the tree that I'm focused on, there is still quite a bit of separation behind with the cloud, and the sort of line of the fell is running through the middle of the tree rather than sort of up the top third, which would make it look a little bit awkward. I've just come round to the left a little bit from where I started because I want Maiden Moor. You can just see the little peak in the top left of the frame here. I want Maiden Moor to be sort of separated off to the left a little bit. I want that gap between the tree and the top of the peak to be quite wide. I don't want them too close together. But in terms of settings, I mean, you know, when you're shooting in snow like this, it's important to make sure that you don't underexpose. I mean, you'll have heard many people talk about this before, but really, if you look at your histogram, you want your histogram ideally as far to the right without clipping, because especially if you leave your camera on sort of matrix metering, it'll sort of underexpose the snow a little bit, which obviously we don't want to do. So as long as the histogram isn't clipped at the right hand end, that's really all I'm after here. No need for any grads, polarizer certainly not in snow, and f11, because I do actually want that mountain in the background to be quite sharp. I mean, when you're shooting trees, you generally want the background a little bit soft, but in this case I'd like that mountain to be quite sharp. So f11, ISO 64, and yeah, hopefully this one should work all right. I've talked about getting the fear on these videos, and I've got the fear again this morning. When it's like this, you're constantly worried that you're either in the wrong place at the wrong time, or you're missing out that something's better around the corner, and you get this sort of grass is greener mentality. But I think it's important sometimes that when it's like this, you just need to stick to your plan and go with your gut instinct. I mean, I've been shooting around here for long enough to know sort of what works and what doesn't work in certain conditions, and my gut instinct was telling me to come here this morning, so I'm trying my best not to start worrying about what's going on in other areas around me. But this shot I've got set up here, I've just come round about 20 yards from where I was shooting that other tree, and I'm looking at this little copse of 5 or 6 trees here. You'll see that the tripod's at full mast. One thing with my photography, I've got a habit of finding the most awkward place that you can set the bloody tripod up. So yeah, full mast, using the center column, not something that, you know, you should really do too often unless it's calm like it is today, so it's not really a problem. But portrait format, really my main issue is just making sure that the top of these trees aren't cutting up into the horizon above the fell behind. I mean, I'm very finicky about these things, but they do really make a difference to your composition. You know, you should really get into the habit of checking your frame edges and making sure for things that aren't distracting you too much, which that certainly would. So I've took a little bit of time getting this set up. I mean, yes, I could, in a perfect world, do with a bit of relief behind and a little bit of softening of the background, maybe with like a snow shower or something, but yeah, certainly can't complain this morning. I'm definitely not. Yeah, portrait format, and hopefully I'll get the separation I'm after. I think I'll just have to say. I'll post it up on the screen now. Let me know what you think.
This image might be the worst image I've taken all year. I just can't for the life of me see why I've pulled the trigger here. I mean, I mentioned out in the field there that it needed some separation from the background, which is a given really with a lot of these shots when you're shooting trees. But I mean, even without that, I mean, the composition here is it's just a bit lifeless and a bit dull. But the main thing that's really annoying me here is that darker patch behind the main trunk on the right. It's really distracting, and I couldn't see that out in the field. I'm picking up on it like a sore thumb here, but yeah, it just really doesn't work. So, but you've got to chalk these ones up to experience. You know, it happens to everyone, and it certainly happens to me. But I'll show you a couple of images that I shot handheld after this point that I think worked a little better.
Okay, so I do apologise for my slightly beetroot complexion. I've had to sort of scramble down here a little bit. People always forget when it snows like this, people want to just get out and take pictures, but if you're going across any kind of rough terrain, it's actually quite tiring. So it's been a bit of a struggle getting down here, especially with all these sort of slippy rocks and stuff. But obviously I've done this safely. Don't worry, Mum. Yeah, I've come across this foreground. Now this branch normally would just be blending into the rocks, but because the snow's fell and it's covering it, they almost look like fingers sort of extending into the sort of immediate foreground here. So I've got the 14 to 30 lens on. We're going quite wide here. I think it's about 19mm. And yeah, I mean this one, it's a bit of a 50-50 one. I'm not going to spend too long here taking this shot, but we've got this nice sort of beck leading up into the background there with the trees overhanging that are covered in the snow. And then, as I say, you've got this really interesting fallen branch in the foreground that caught my eye. So yeah, might work, might not. The only problem is I've left the polarizer in the car because I was expecting to shoot trees all morning and didn't really need a polarizer, so I'm going to have to do this one without the polarizer, but I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference anyway. But we'll take this one and see how we get on.
So I'm looking at this one on the screen and I'm not really having a good time with it here. This is another one that doesn't quite hit the mark for me. It's a good lesson though, in that when you're shooting ultra wide, you really need to get up close and personal to your foreground. It's the main crux of your image, if you like, if you're shooting ultra wide. And the tree branch that's fallen there in the foreground that initially sort of caught my eye and made me want to come down here and explore this shot, I really haven't got close enough to it. I mean, I thought I was pretty close here, but when I'm looking at this on the screen, it's just not standing out enough, and the result of that is that fallen branch is blending far too much into the background with all the other snow-covered rocks and branches, so it kind of looks a bit of a sort of cluttered mess. I mean, it's a nice scene, you know, woodland covered in snow is never the worst thing to look at, but as it is here, this image doesn't quite work for me again. But you've got to try these things. And as I said, out in the field, it wasn't one that I was going to spend an awful lot of time on, but I was pretty happy with a couple of the images that I got earlier in the day. So all in all, it's a pretty good morning.
Right, I'm going to leave this one here because I think I've gone a bit image blind, to be honest. You know, the conditions this morning have been brilliant, and you can almost sort of see too much, and I've struggled here more than I thought I was going to be honest. I've never shot this place in snow before, and I thought it was going to be a bit easier, but what I've came away with is that, you know, I could have done with a few snow showers or something to give me some separation with the trees, but hopefully I've come away with a couple of half decent images, and if nothing else, it's been a lovely morning out. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this one. Nice to see a bit of snow, and I don't know where I'm going to be on the next one, but yeah, I'll see you later.